Well, I'm now in Indiana in the United States. I've been teaching for 19 years. I'll be starting my 20th year of teaching here. Oh, too soon in the next few weeks. I started back, I guess, probably my second or third year in teaching, doing some science Olympiad. I don't know if you guys are familiar with what that is, but it's a real STEM based competition, and it got me thinking that I would like to incorporate all of that kind of stuff in my classroom. I did that for probably 13, 14 years, something like that. I taught that science Olympiad course, and then after that, I just really started focusing on the benefits that came, and the things that I saw happening whenever we started doing these types of STEM activities in the classroom, and not just the types of activities we were doing, but the skills and the characteristics that I started seeing in students. So I actually went and got my master's certification in STEM leadership. And then I went and got my master's degree in STEM education. And then for some reason, I continued on, and I'm now writing my dissertation for my doctorate in instructional technology. So along the way, somewhere, I sent an email, or I'm sorry, I sent a tweet to a to the head of a publishing company about an idea that I had, and they said, "That's a good idea. Would you be interested in writing a book about it?" And so I wrote my book about the benefits of thinking kind of outside the box and taking steps outside your comfort zone. And I guess I would say that's what led me to be asked to create courses for EduSpark, and that's where we're at now. So it's kind of a 20-year journey to this to this point right here. Yeah, and it might come across as the wrong idea about this coming. Obviously, we want students to be comfortable in class, but let me tell you from my educational experience, um, I wasn't pushed out of my comfort zone in regards to learning and taking educational risks, um, as much as what I felt I should have. At the time, I was appreciative of it because nothing gave me anxiety. I wasn't nervous about anything. I actually, obviously, I made great grades because nothing was really overly challenging me. So that's the idea, is to get students to begin, feeling okay with the idea that while I'm outside of my comfort zone, that's where I know I'm going to be learning. That's where I know the growth is going to take place. If we compare it to, let's say, a learning theorist or something, Vygotsky talks about like the zone of proximal development. That's that place, outside of what they already know, but it's things that it's just outside their comfort zone. Educator's not going to have to help them at that point. They're going to be able to do it, but it's going to be beyond what they already know. So I kind of relate it to that whenever we talk about any type of theory. So in my experience, without that type of growth or without that type of discomfort, there's just no growth taking place. Well, and if I my book in the book I and in the course, obviously, life skills. If all we ever do, and this was my experience, life was waiting for me with monumental challenges that were painful to experience, because all I had ever done my whole life was try to stay in my comfort zone, whether that was in athletics, whether that was in academic. I mean, everything I did, I tried to stay in a comfort zone. And then life came to me and said, "Hey, guess what? Got some other plans for you. Not only are we going to take you out of your, we're going to push you off the edge." And not that any approach to problem solving can fix every problem that we face. Not that that's the case. However, as we develop skills, as we develop life skills, that should help us navigate that journey. And I think that our job as educators is yes, of course, help them develop those schema. I mean, that's great. However, we've got to get them to apply their knowledge and apply the skills that they're going to need outside of the classroom, just as much as they're going to need that academic material. Well, I'm a big constructivist learning theory guy. I think STEM, having a background in STEM and sciences, and I think that goes right along with that. I've watched students blossom when presented with authentic challenges, social interactions. Just I think that whenever you give them an authentic challenge, it promotes that social interaction amongst the students. So I think constructivism and social constructivism are my main ideas. However, authentic challenges that you provide students, and a lot of people, I feel that they struggle with, well, how do I apply, how do I make this an authentic challenge in math? The design process that I promote through that, through the courses, you can apply that design process, which is a problem solving process, which you can use outside of the classroom. You can use that on literally any activity, any project, any assignment, anything. That makes it authentic because you're using real world problem solving skills on, say, a math assignment. And when I talk, I'll get into a little more of the process itself. But when we learn to be problem solvers, we can view every single challenge that's presented to us as an opportunity to apply that. And then we can apply it outside as well. I've seen so many times in my life where I've benefited from stepping back and identifying my problem and doing a little bit of research before jumping right to we're in a world of instant gratification, right? We want that problem solved right then and there. And there is a true advantage to sitting back and taking things one step at a time, analyzing the results, and basing your next steps on the information that you receive from everyone. Use every single step as an opportunity to create a foundation on which to take your next. And the authenticity of our challenges that we provide, the opportunity to work in a social constructivist learning environment, those are really, I think, what binds all of it. And then what we'll see through the life skills course, those are the skills that are promoted. Those are the skills that are rewarded, not only in the class, but also once we step outside into the real
Mm,
world.
mm,
Yeah. I
mm,
think it's really hard. I know that me personally, uh, unless I know exactly what my problem is, it's very unlikely that I'm going to solve it in a way that's truly effective.
mm,
Uh,
mm,
and I think whenever the book is called By Design, and then Problem Solving by Design, Life Skills by Design. I've based it all on an engineering design process. Where you take the time to
sure.
identify the true challenge in front of you, and you take the time to do research. And don't get me started on what kids these days think research is. And just looking it up on Google, right? That's not research. And honestly, whenever they look it up on Google and they come to me and they say, I can't find any answer. Good, because if you could find the answer, I didn't give you much of a challenge, right? That if you can find the answer that quick, it's not a problem. So anyway, yeah, going and actually digging in and finding information that can help them come up with possible solutions to a problem. Um, Taking time to design actually, what you're going to use to solve this problem. Parameters. um, Without parameters, it's not a problem. I've never once faced a problem in my life where money or time or knowledge wasn't an issue, a parameter that was keeping me from doing that. If I had all the money and all the time and all the knowledge, it wouldn't be a problem for me. So so that's where discomfort comes in for me in the classroom. You
Mm,
have to make it to where there are some parameters so that students do feel like, well, I can't answer this like that,
mm,
because problems await us in life where they're not going to be able to answer them like
mm,
that. And if they don't have a method that they can lean on, that's when real problems come in life, and you face problems
mm.
cannot that you cannot um, overcome. Yeah, and that's like, whenever you do like a risk analysis at the beginning of a project or something, finding what could be our potential problems. And then once they do become, it's a potential until it's an actual issue. Now we know what the problem, what we already knew it could be, but now it is an issue. And now let's start going about addressing that. And something else that comes through this all the time is educators. I've felt that critical thinking is this thing that people say we want our students to have, and we know the importance of it, but until we're actually designing challenges for them, and again, it does not have to be this big project-based learning thing that takes an entire semester.
Yeah.
Until you're doing things where they really have to analyze the results of the step they just took, find out what worked, find out what didn't, and you're
Mm,
giving them the opportunity to take the
mm.
next step based off that information. Once we do, critical thinking is not that hard of a concept to explain when you show them what critical thinking is through this process. Iterative, right? It's an iterative process. It's something
Yeah,
that can be
yeah,
you have to be able to go back to where where your last mistake was and work from there. Keep what works. And
yeah.
gosh, wouldn't that be great if we applied this to our life? How many times have I made the same mistake over and over again, instead of saying, "Oh, hey, the result of that was and that was painful. That wasn't so great. I'm going to go back and I'm going to take the things that worked and stick with them, and I'm going to take those things that didn't, and I'm going to get rid get rid of those." Exactly, exactly. And
Mm.
there's this push right now to celebrate failure. This
Oh,
fail fest and all this stuff. And I understand the importance of failure, but all of us understand also that what we should understand, that failure takes you away from your goal. It's not
yes,
something that we want. It happens. However, it's not something that I want to celebrate. I want to use it and the information that came from it, and I want to use that to make a more productive next step.
yeah.
So, I'm not an anti-fail person. However, I am not a let's celebrate failure kind of person.
Well, firstly, I'd like to say, yes, Chad, I really agree with the whole idea of when you make a mistake, you learn from it. That's what I try to support teachers with in a class. Look at those students who've made that error and
Yes.
how can you prevent that, or how can you teach them to prevent that next time? Because I
Yeah.
think a repeated error is very difficult to unlearn.
Yeah.
Would you
Yeah. I think
agree?
you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But my question was, you started at the start talking about problem solving in our lives,
Mhm.
and I guess how would you perceive what's happened in the last 2 years with the pandemic as this giant context for all the problems that we've all faced, not
Yeah.
just the children, but you know, that's like this real world example that's been global. And I guess it's almost a lesson for kids in that some people can cope and solve a bit better than others, and sometimes things are beyond our control.
Yeah.
What do you think
Well,
about
first of all, first, I think it's a wonderful analogy of the importance of growth mindset. I hear
that?
so many people, being critical of steps that are being taken. This is all new.
Yeah,
This was all new to us. You're going to take steps that you feel are the best based on the information that you have. But because it's a new challenge, remember I just said
mm,
a
yeah,
while ago,
yeah,
if there was already an answer to this, it wouldn't be a problem. So we're trying to figure out things as we go. And
yeah,
as we go, we are going to make mistakes. We put people in positions of being an expert at this and expert at that. that does not mean that we don't make mistakes. That growth mindset that's associated with, I was just asked today if we were to start a STEM program in the middle school, what would be the very first step? And I said growth mindset training, because we all need to be aware that we're basing our decisions on what we have available to us at the time. In terms of the coping mechanisms with this, I think social emotional learning is so strongly supported by this process. We want to build confidence because our community is all working toward the same goals.
Yeah.
What kind of foundation do you want in a program like this? It's the same foundation I want out here in the real world. I want a community of compassionate people. I want to know that I want to look around and understand that we are all facing problems. My challenge that I face may be very different than yours. However, I know that you're facing challenges. You know that I'm facing challenges, and we're trying to get to products that are going to meet these challenges. So communities of compassionate learners would be the foundation that I set whenever you roll this out in a classroom.
Yep. And the importance of resilience in the face of making a mistake or something, and have another go. Like
commitment.
Experts. Yeah.
That's when the life skills runs down 12 C's. 12 C's of design learning. One of them is commitment. You can't quit.
Yep.
Kids these days, and I say kids these days, there are, I think we have an issue whenever answers are not found immediately. They want to give up. Well, I've tried this. Well, there are going to be problems that we face you cannot give up on.
Yeah.
The choices that another one of them is choice. Everybody wants to think, oh, we've got to give kids choice and all this. Yes, but we also need to teach them that the choices they make come with results.
Yep.
And whenever it's a design learning process that we're going through, kids get to pretty much make all the choices.
Yeah.
They decide on every step of the way. So they know that if it succeeds, it's because of their choices. If it does not succeed, it was because of their choice. We want to blame somebody else for everything. Whenever it comes to this process, there is nobody to blame but yourself for something great that happened from it or something that did not. But the great thing is we can go back, we can find what didn't work, and we give them the opportunity to build on that.
It's almost like
that's a great question.
Like those little books. Remember those little books that would choose your own adventure, and you would choose, but you've got to go back if you choose the wrong way. So it's almost.
I've drawn diagrams of this. I've drawn diagrams. If your communication at the very end, if it's not right, if it's not what you want, go back, find another way to change that. It's just, I think that I was raised in an education system where you got one chance. Prove yourself one chance. And that's why there was so much, pressure on a test and stuff. And don't get me wrong, I believe that there should be assessments for academic knowledge. However, not very often have I been asked about the content of those tests, but over and over and over again, I would have relied on a problem-solving process to help me through challenges in my life. I would have 5 years ago, whenever I started going and speaking at conferences and stuff, taking a step out of my comfort zone to go and do that kind of stuff. Every place I went, it was the 4 C's of education. It was, communication and critical thinking, the 4 C's. And I thought, oh, those are the most important C's then, because they have to be, they're everywhere. But I don't think those things take place unless you get what I said a while ago, those foundations in your classroom where students feel like they're part of a learning community and they feel that others are compassionate, knowing that we're all going to go through and face these challenges that none of us know. None of us know these challenges. Yeah. Something else it does whenever we put these challenges out there, it really does level the playing field. It makes it to where, You know, yes, there may be somebody who has all A's and there may be somebody who's always had straight C's, but that doesn't mean that they're better problem solvers and they can approach this challenge with the right process. So my foundational C's are definitely building that strong community and building a community of compassionate learners. From that, everything else can grow on that. But if you don't have that strong foundation, I don't think that kids are going to have the confidence that I'm going to that I'm going to want them to have in life. Not a confidence like I'm going to know every answer, but the confidence of I know a process that I can apply to challenges in my life. I don't know that they'll have the courage to stand up for what's right. Because if you don't have a community of compassionate learners, you're not going to have that. You're going to be, maybe a little hesitant to show that courage, the curiosity that we want everybody to have. Gosh, I used to have students come up and say, like, "Hey, Mr. LeDune, what would happen if we changed the angle of my rocket wing?" And I'd be like, "What you mean? Like, what would happen to the dependent variable whenever you change the independent variable?" They're like, "No, that's not what I meant at all." But I was like, "Yeah, you're curious about things. You're wondering things." And that all came from the fact that we started with this community that allows you and promotes this curiosity and that creativity that we want everybody all of our students to have. That's not going to take place, or it's very unlikely if they're afraid of ridicule, if they're afraid of being made fun of, if they're afraid that there is one answer. If there's one answer, there's no room for creativity.
Exactly.
So I'm very strong on build that foundation, spend whatever time you have to spend letting everybody know that the things that we are going to do in this class this year or the methods that we are going to use are going to be different. They're going to be ways that you may have never done before, but I promise you they apply to everything in this class, everything in the, I don't care if you go to English, language arts, math, you can approach a challenge with a problem solving mindset. Competition. And it was a struggle. I always say it's probably the most controversial of the C's that I put in there because we've all seen the detrimental side effects of too much competition. And I make no excuse, there too much competition in the classroom causes people to withdraw and not show their creativity for fear of losing. However, I will say that I included them because competition is everywhere in this world. We're going to compete for scholarships. We're going to compete for jobs. We're going to compete, and eighth graders do not like to hear this, but you're going to compete for spouses, for partners. There is competition everywhere. Now, if you just started with competition and you didn't have a supportive community and a compassionate community, then I think you're setting yourself up for a disaster. However, when you have a community of supportive learners and you have compassion amongst them, I do go ahead and I include challenges. I don't, and I do say sometimes that there is one winner here. Whenever we do a challenge, now not every day, but whenever you do a challenge, there is one, because a lot of times in life, there is one winner. Now, it's not a that's it, you're going to get the A, everybody else gets F's kind of things. But students need to be aware that when they do the very best, then they can be rewarded. And then whenever they don't, they need to be thinking, "Ooh, I wish I had tried this. Next time I'm going to try this. Next time," we give them the opportunity to learn from that. If it's a one-time thing, probably not going to come out too well. But competition is everywhere in this world. And with the populations continuing to increase, it's only going to increase. So I do want them to be able to have healthy competition in our classroom. And it's not a gold star. It's not a certificate. It's not getting the A. It's not like that kind of stuff. That's not the competition that I want. I want to promote healthy competition. Well, I put emphasis on every step. So let's say, and again, I'm coming from a STEM background, a science background. So, regarding a math competition in class, let's say I don't have the expertise in that, but we built all sorts of things in our classes that applied physics concepts. Um, but I never placed the value on the competition any more than I placed value on research. Um, I always emphasized process, 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 process. At the end, yeah, we'll have a competition. We'll look at our products. But that didn't give you any better of a grade or a result than having basing your designs off brainstorm, off your brainstorming sessions, telling me why you made the changes you did. Oh, it's because during this step of the testing, you saw this result. So therefore you made this change. Every bit that was just as important as that end competition that we had. So to me, emphasizing process over product is key. Every student can be successful. There are students that have never received an A, always got straight D's in science class or whatever. Following a process and rewarding a process gives every student the opportunity to feel success. Every student. Because I promise you, whenever you present them a challenge that nobody knows at the beginning, by the end of it, they have a better product than they would have at the very beginning, because they've based every next step on information they received from their testing. Well, I always got asked, well, wait a minute. So if I get last place in the competition, am I going to flunk this assignment? No, no. Well, I don't even use that as a part of the grade for this, or rubric. It's not even in the rubric. Look at the rubric. What am I rewarding? What am I asking you for? I'm asking you for evidence of next steps. I'm asking you for communication skills, and communication is another one of the C's, but it doesn't have to be standing up in front of a group. Audio recordings are wonderful for those kids who don't want to be on a video. You're writing creativity, that creative side of this, what seems like a very logical process. That creative side definitely comes out in the communication aspect of it. I've had kids write songs. I've had kids write stories instead of standing up and making a PowerPoint presentation. That's fine if that's what you want to do, but there are other ways to communicate this process. So yes, in short, yeah, take that competition away from any type of assessment.
Yeah, my question is that in some of my work with teachers in classrooms, I focused the competition on a daily personal best. So it's a competition with yourself. Yeah. So that can be applied in writing. When you're asking them, oh, you're writing your daily journal, can you write 1 or 2 more words today than yesterday? Yeah. Or in reading, when you're practicing the same story a couple of times, can you read more today than yesterday? And I know you'll read more tomorrow. How would that fit within your C's? Does that?
Gosh, which one would that be?
It's sort of a different form of competition.
Yeah, it is. I think it's a commitment to self.
Yeah.
I think it's a commitment to self-improvement. I don't, at the beginning of the year, whenever I did STEM and whenever I taught STEM, it was constantly, this is going to be difficult right now. You're not going to find this comfortable. You're going to be challenged, not only because you don't know the answer, but because those of you who have succeeded so many times in everything else in a traditional classroom, you may not experience that success. But we're not looking at success as an A. We're looking at success as growth.
And the journey.
And that's what I say in the book is if we redefine success as personal growth and improvement upon where you were at the beginning, every student has the opportunity to get that whatever gold star or whatever it is that we used to give out. They're showing improvement. They're growing. But again, it for me, without knowing a growth mindset, having a growth mindset mentality, that's going to be a difficult thing.
Mm.
Students are so used to now, um, product, product, product. What's the easiest way for me to get an A? And that's something that has to start, at the first day they walk in kindergarten, is
Mm.
understanding that we're looking for commitment to self and improvement. That's what we're looking for. I'm not
Mm.
looking for an A.
Mm.
I'm looking for
Evi
improvement.
Yeah, evidence of learning
Yes.
and
Yeah.
growth. That's what we're looking for, and evidence-based. Yep,
Yeah.
I agree. Great
Yeah.
answer. Thank you.
Yeah. I know that I was always relieved at the end of any kind of project, whenever I was younger, if I wasn't asked to explain. I could explain my product. I could tell you what I built, or I could tell you what I came up with, or I could but if I was asked why I did what I did, explain the process that I went through in order to come up with the solution, I think that's, we've all heard that we were better teachers, or we learned the material best when we had to teach it. Right?
Yeah,
That was
I
when
agree.
we became experts in the field, is whenever we had to communicate it in a way that others would be able to understand it.
Mm.
And I think that's at the end of all of these, and I always go back to a math problem. I've watched students come to me, and my own children come to me with 40 math problems that they need to do. If you can approach that problem with a design learning mentality and a problem solving approach, if by the end of it, you can tell me, what kind of problem this is, here's my research based on, here's another example of how one of these has worked. I designed, this is what process I decided to use on it. If you can tell me the process of solving that, then I don't need you to do 40 of them. You know why you did every step. Um, I think that shows your expertise in being able to accomplish whatever challenge, is when you know what you messed up on along the way, why you took all of the steps you did, and you came up with this answer. Great, but I'm more concerned about the process that you went through. So I love the communication aspect of it, and truthfully, students will immediately go to PowerPoint, Google Slides, things like that. And there's nothing wrong with that. What I'm looking for through all of it, I don't care what platform they use, what medium they provide they provide their communication through. I'm looking that they are able to communicate exactly why they did what they did to come up with their solution. And that's where I think that you can tell whether or not they've learned the material, or they know the concepts, whenever they're able to verbalize it, or put it in a song, or put it in writing, whatever. Yeah. Well, and
Mm.
I think that one of the collaboration aspect of the C's, and again, that's one that's in the list there. But it, whenever we realize, and we humble ourselves and say, I'm not the smartest person in this room. Other people come in here with different life experiences,
Yep,
different areas of expertise. Something they can provide, something that can help us move closer toward this,
yep,
to meeting this challenge. That's one of them that I always felt like, it's definitely the number one skill that employers look for. But yet, how often are we brought to that level of humbleness where we look at those around us and we say, they have a totally different life path than me, totally different experiences, and
mm,
I need to know what they know about this, so that we can use, maybe it's just a little bit of it, but maybe
mm,
they have something to contribute that's what's going to push us over the edge. And that's just everything in life too. I mean,
mm,
how many times have I had to go and talk to somebody that's an expert in another area than myself,
mm, mm,
so that I can come closer to meeting my challenges?
mm, mm.
And sometimes that takes courage. So I said I'm never writing anything ever ever again. I I'm in the midst of a dissertation right now. That is my mountain in front of me. Um,
And the
I
topic?
think balancing family life with career, with this mountain of dissertation is, and that's something that has taken, um, gosh, that's taken some stepping back, prioritizing, um, reflecting on what has worked and what has not in my courses that I've taken. Um, I say time management, and I listened to something the other day. It's not time management because time is going to go on by at the exact same time amount of time, no matter how well you manage it. It's prioritizing. It's putting things that are important to you, and making time for what you need to get done. So
What's the
I
topic?
know,
Can I ask what the topic is of your
yeah,
dissertation?
yeah. My dissertation is concerning the amount of professional, or I shouldn't say the amount, the professional development, um, provided for middle school educators that help them implement one-to-one technology in a constructivist learning environment.
Okay.
Um,
Okay. Great.
I know me personally, whenever we started rolling out one-to-one initiatives, that was going to be the answer. Oh, well, all we have to do is have technology. But I
That's a
wondered, I'm a big believer in that's only a process tool.
yeah.
Truthfully, the reason I wrote the book initially was I saw students relying too much on technology,
Yeah.
um, and
Agreed.
when they couldn't have it, or they didn't have access to it, or it didn't provide
Yeah.
their answer, it
Lost.
they couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And so I was like, we've got to. What if what if the power goes out? Well, or what are we going, and I'm not saying what are we going to do with our time, how are we going to approach problems when we don't have Google there to ask it. So that's why I
Yeah.
wanted to look into, whenever you write a dissertation, I had this grand scheme initially of exactly what I was going to do,
Yeah.
and by the time it got down to like to this little tiny gap in literature that
Yeah.
now I'm going to pursue. Um, but that's what I want to know. I want to know, are we may have the technology, but are educators provided the professional development that enables them to use them in a constructivist learning environment as a process tool?
If I, can I just ask one more question? Sorry
Yeah.
to
Oh,
dominate
okay.
it. So what you're asking is, what's your plan B when the technology doesn't work?
Yeah.
What's your plan B? Do you have one of kids and teachers?
Yeah. No, I
Yeah.
know that's,
Yeah.
and I'm as guilty as anyone of
Yeah.
once of I say once in a while of often leaning upon it. And I think that people of a certain age are able to realize that they're dependent upon it. I think some of the younger students, we don't realize, and if that goes out, I don't.
Yeah.
That's a serious concern.
Concern.
So I
Yeah.
say this as I'm getting my doctorate in instructional technology, putting courses on platforms, or
Yes. Yes.
e-learning platform. I simply want to think that there are students out there that we're create. I say we're making students to where they have a process that they can rely on.
Mm. Mm.
We want critical thinkers. We want problem solvers. And I've said this, and the the next great invention, that cure for cancer, that that whoever steps foot on Mars, it's all going to start with curiosity. It's
Mm.
all going to start with a student being confident enough and creative enough to put their words, and courageous enough to put those words out there someday to somebody. What if we try this?
Mm.
And if all we ever have is a phone to rely on, I don't know how many what ifs are going to be asked. And there's a part of the book, it talks about candles, and it's like the logic of candles, right? Like the whole purpose of it was to the light and create a little bit of heat. And now like by the year 2025, it's going to be like a $14 billion industry. Are you telling me that it took that many people need that little bit of heat and that little bit of light? No, it took somebody creative to find that and turn the logic into something creative. And that's what we need. We need people who are, yes, logical, but also creative, to where we can start, create, the next thing, the next is going to come from those creative minds.
Mm, mm.
No. No, listen, I think my wife would leave me if if I decided to write anything else. I'm going to get through the dissertation, and I'm going to look and see what happens after that. I've I've humbled myself many a times in the past 10 years to realize that my plans that I have, I don't know what's happening next. The next door that opens, if it's an opportunity that I want to pursue, then I will. But I'm going to take it one step at a time. I'm obviously going to, work very hard to accomplish this goal of my doctorate, and then I'm going to see what kind of doors open after that. I love traveling. I have this dream of taking this type of problem solving to developing countries, because they face problems greater than I can ever imagine. And if there's problems that need solved, if there are people who need problem solving, there are some that face much greater challenges than myself, and I would love to do that. So I guess that's a dream, but who knows what happens. I would, and like I told people today, was I would without a doubt look into growth mindset, leadership theories. I think that one thing that comes from just as a natural side effect of a growth mindset and applying these processes in our room are just leadership skills. And whenever you have that growth mindset, I think we're able to use mistakes in our lives as opportunities to grow instead of hiding them. Um, I want people to know that no matter what, how much we try to prepare for the discomforts of life and the challenges of life, there's there are problems out there waiting for us that are going to require the skills that are promoted through this type of process.
Mm,
Um,
mm,
so I think we should always pursue and promote those types of skills in our classrooms. But if I was to say one thing to start with, that Carol Dweck wrote a pretty great book on growth mindset.